Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing something quite a bit different, which is we are going to be doing a react video to something that's entirely in Russian. The reason being is we read through our annotations here on Winter is Coming, the subtitle being Why Vladimir Putin and the Enemies of the Free World Must Be Stopped, written by one Garry Kasparov on the right there. And the reason why we read this is we read this in preparation for our charity stream for raising money for the Ukraine Defense Fund, which gives non-lethal military equipment to those fighting on the front lines in Ukraine on behalf of the Ukrainians. Stuff like radios, body armor, helmets, this sort of thing. The charity's still up and going. If you go down to our Twitch, which the link is down below, you can click on this donate to charity button if you are interested in contributing to the defense of Ukraine. With that said, rather than just do another book review, because we've already done one on the channel for this, I thought we would react to a video of Garry Kasparov's, and we found the perfect one to react to after a little bit of digging, which is This Is Him from a Podcast on February 24th, the 3-year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, giving his thoughts. We have not watched this. We know it's all in Russian. We have it set up to closed caption in English. I think we are going to try and read the English subtitles for everyone, for those of you who don't want to just read along the subtitles with us, and also pause and react and this sort of thing, but we're probably going to mostly let Garry go, do his thing, and read the subtitles out loud for those of you who are interested in his thoughts on what's going on the 3-year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. So, without further ado, hopefully we have no advertisements popped up, otherwise we'll have to crop this. We did let it play all throughout once, so I don't think there will be any advertisement, but let's be on our way. We start a stream on a significant date, on a special date, February 24th. Today is the 3rd anniversary of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, or of Russia into Ukraine, and all this against the backdrop of 11 years of war that Russia has been waging against Ukraine, starting with Crimea. And today, we have Kasparov. Hello. The issue of a possible truce, or rather a temporary ceasefire, is being discussed now. How would you outline the main results to date, interim results for 3 years since the start of a full-scale big war? Well, firstly, it must be said that February 24th will always remain a day of shame in Russian history, and even in Russian history such as this is Kasparov talking, are not yet in any way related to the aggression of the whole dictator that is unfortunately generally supported by the majority of the population of our country. To recognize that is Russia in general has been dehumanized, and the fact that the war has been going on for 3 years is one of the results here. The depth has been demonstrated. You can tell the translate's not perfect. Prisoners here, you can argue there are one to say how many of them deliberately went to prison, how on principle such are heroic people like, say, Tambov or Gorinov. We don't know these people. Well, most of it is clear that they just got into trouble under the locomotive of these repressions here, but in general the country continues to live, work for the war. And so this is an interesting commentary on what's going on in Russia that we have much less of an insight into because we don't speak Russian, which is why we're translating this into English, about how Vladimir Putin's still popular in Russia, which is something that we are aware of, and how prisoners or Russian soldiers getting intentionally captured so that they can evade Russia is something that he seems to be discussing here. Here and now in Najda wandered in to improve relations with America, we see doubt such here. There is no remorse about what they did, and moreover, as if the scale of the crime is only increases, we consistently read about the bombing of both Ukrainian peaceful objects and about the execution of prisoners. Again, some people do this in general, as if who apparently do not see any restrictions in here, according to which for a normal person would serve as a barrier that cannot be stepped over. This is what concerns Russia. As for Ukraine, of course, it demonstrated as a country and a people incredible courage, fortitude, in essence, over all the forecasts, and not only forecasts in the inflamed imagination of the Kremlin commanders, but also in the forecasts of the Western CIA, completely disgraced with all the intelligence services there who believed that Kiev would go some there in Ukraine itself. And all the ephemerality of the world order, which seemed when we were preserved after 91st year. Oh man, it was probably necessary to think of when we were preserved after 91st year, we needed real changes. It was necessary to think about new geopolitical infrastructure. No one thought about it. America basically blew this time. Well, it is clear that everyone was busy enriching themselves, but in the end, so he's talking about in 91, this was the fall of the Soviet Union, the election of Boris Yeltsin, and then the subsequent need for democratic institutions. Garry Kasparov, in his book, is in particular very critical of the way in which the FSB, which is the successor to the Kremlin, was not broken apart as part of what happened in 91. And he's talking about, the needs for assistance to get Russia back up on its feet. Russia went through some pretty dark times from 91 to 2000 when Putin was elected. But in the end, America got Donald Trump once again. But in essence, Trump, he demonstrated with axe methods that the NATO structure, yes, in general, as if all this security system on which everyone relies is ephemeral. Ephemeral must be a classic word that is within a translation of a classic word within the Russian cultural milieu. Often when strange English words come up a lot in translation, they are words that have a lot of weight, but we don't know the Russian that is getting translated in this. Because too many different interests and readiness to truly confront the aggressor were not demonstrated. Yeah, this is correct. Putin should have been stopped in Georgia. He should have been stopped in Ukraine the first time, and he should have been stopped in Ukraine the second time. Now we have, the continuation of a less than heavy-handed response, and even worse than that in terms of the way the winds are changing. And if Ukraine had not held out in the first days, which nobody expected, I expected them to fall in the first week, if not for the truly exemplary courage of those who fought, and it is clear that the political leadership of Vladimir Zelensky and his team, who with an obvious risk to their lives still managed to hold the country, well, the first days, of course, the world map now looks completely different. In principle, Ukraine, with the lives of thousands of its soldiers, destroyed cities, villages, millions of refugees, stolen children who are stolen. There's the number is in the 5 digits. It's in the tens of thousands. I think it's in the low tens of thousands, but don't quote me on the numbers. There are on an industrial scale, and brought to Russia for brainwashing and turning them into in general the man-kurts, not knowing. I don't know what man-kurt refers to. Not knowing that the families of the motherland, and at this price, Ukraine saved Europe in principle. So I think that I would not be surprised if, generally speaking, Kasparov is of the opinion that Ukraine is acting as the wall, if not the speed bump for the rest of Europe in this current time, demonstrating, extreme levels of heroism, resisting a much larger foe in terms of manpower and also at the outset military equipment. I'm not sure what the balance of military equipment is at this point, though. This is what is flourishing, what is happening in Kiev today. We are talking about these leaders of the Western world, minus America, which is now by no means among the leaders. Yeah. Truth hurts. In general, with Trump, I would say it is doubtful what is part of the Western world in the sense, as we understand it. This Europe declared that it would be suddenly help suddenly, and money was found, and determination. Determined is another word that gets used a lot by Russians when they speak in English. a lot more than like an average native English speaker. So it's not surprising to see that more in the translation. We have seen a lot of Russian speakers speak in English as a result of chess, but being critical of Europe not coming up with the money until it looks like America's not going to help out anymore, I think is Kasparov's point right here. Was found is like the wording that implies that to me. Of course, this is Google, or not Google Translate, this is YouTube's Translate. Was found is the same. Already here it is again, through blood. Probably it cannot be any other way. A big war is inevitable when the world systems up to this point turn out to be not viable, not functional. Damn it. I thought by letting it play through, we would avoid the ads. We'll be back when this is done. Okay, talking about a failure of the word systems. Turn out to be not viable, not functional. Humanity goes through blood in order to create a new one. Yeah. This is the unfortunate thing, is Kasparov warns about this in his book, and he says that the West needs to withhold engagement of financial means, stop legitimizing Putin, and at this point, Putin needs to be stopped with blood, per the language that Kasparov is kind of laying down right now, and create a new system of relations, which international relations in our eyes. This is happening now. This system is being formed. It is difficult to say what the exact configuration will be. Like, well, in appearance, it seemed that it would, of course, be the Baltic countries, Scandinavian countries, probably like Poland, probably Germany, Romania, Great Britain, but it feels like Europe is showing unity here. We see Spain, Portugal, Italy, that is, in fact, well, and France, that is the hope that Europe will fall apart from there, and I think fall in line is probably a better translation than fall apart. There are overseas roar, and from many years of subversive work of the Russian agents. Is he talking about the Russian agents operating to destabilize these countries of the West? Perhaps. This did not happen yesterday. Elections were held in Germany. It is clear, of course, we will talk about this, yes. Well, it is clear that this will go on the whole. I am saying as if a as if this geopolitical situation, and here's the most important thing, Ukraine is not alone, and the war, of course, cannot end in the blink of an eye. That is this nonsense of Trump. And Trump administration, that we will end it here now by signing some agreements on fertilizers, or I don't know, rare earth minerals, he's about to say, I assume. But of course, the problem is that Vladimir Putin has broken many peace agreements, and so what you need alongside them are security guarantees. Rare earth metals, well, this is the mentality of a profiteer who simply believes that everything is done by deals. The problem that must be solved for the war to stop is the problem of Russian expansionism. This is a problem of imperialism. It's the reason why the comparison to Hitler is apt, because Hitler was given his aggression was attempted to be stopped by the methods of appeasement, and when you feed the beast just keeps eating. And so if Ukraine falls, he's going for Moldova, and he does make the comparison to Hitler in his book, and he, of course, does it with the self-aware comment that he is aware about how cliche it is to compare someone to Hitler, but when the shoe fits, you might as well wear it. That is called the Russian Empire. In the 10th century, there was a big problem in Europe. This is there as if the Turkish Ottoman Empire is a sick person. The euro I think he's saying that the the Europe is as if it were the sick man of Europe that referred to the Ottoman Empire at its decline at the start of the Victorian era. It was clear. Problems will begin, by the way, in principle, there on those territories, in that Balkan cauldron, there it ripened. As a result, the First World War, which dragged on the second and the other tragedies. Of course, these two wars are the consequences of expansionism, imperialism, the carving out of spheres of influence, and eventually the spheres, having no place left to carve, are forced to carve into each other. This is the same problem. Putin's Russia today is the source, in general, as if, well, of incessant evil, just such a continuously generating one, and it is till the Putin regime is defeated, until a point is put here in the centuries-old bloody history of the Russian Empire. In fact, the world cannot but calm down, or will be unable to calm down, I assume, is the better translation. Let's continue. It is not a fact that prosperity will come later, as they say. There is also China. There are many dictators, but it's quite obvious that today's instability in the world here, if the entire arc of instability, here is all the blood that is pouring there, as if it's simply along the perimeter of the globe. There, if in Asia and in Africa and Latin America, and, well, naturally in Europe, this is primarily connected with this incessant subversive activity of the Kremlin. There is this, a different book that we had read made this sort of, or created this sort of narrative that what is produced by Putin's Russia is chaos, and that is the primary thing in which they export, and the subversive activity to which he refers is the intentional destabilizing of, Western democracies and the like, which in general cannot live differently, and therefore any truce today, of course, it will be a temporary nature. Of course, you have to keep in mind that a truce deal was already signed, a peace agreement was already signed with them in regards to the first invasion of Ukraine by Russia. That is because war will continue exactly because the Putin regime has no other algorithm for its existence. And today, as we see, Russia as a whole has to be transferred to a war footing from economics and politics to the Russian social sphere, simply down the vertical to kindergarten. Just a complete integration of everything into the propaganda and war machine. And this locomotive does not turn back as if it were going. It is rushing into this abyss, and therefore today it seems to me that the civilized world is beginning to realize and is demonstrating that this only maximum assistance to Ukraine and a Ukrainian victory in this war can save the world from even greater catastrophes, like advertisement. Alright, so we're back. Yes, indeed. Starting probably with the Vienna Congress, maybe can even remember about the peace of Vilsky. The Great Wars led to the establishment of a certain new system that was a certain foundation that kept the world from sliding into a major war and a bloody massacre. They do say blood a lot. I'm not sure if this is just like common terminology or if this is them saying blood and like this type of stuff more than normal here. And in fact, we now have the largest war since World War II. This is an important, I think, point that they are trying to drive home is the peace dividend is good, but the peace dividend is only something that's allowed to happen when there is a world order and people play nice with each other. Right now in Europe, and indeed everything indicates that some new configuration will develop rich. We discussed in previous broadcasts that a truce is extremely unlikely, even a ceasefire, for the simple reason that there are insurmountable points of disagreement between Ukraine and between those things that are imposed by Putin and Putin's minions. Notably, Ukraine wants security guarantees. I think Ukraine would even be willing to concede positions of the Donbass and this type of stuff if they got into NATO, but that's categorically not something that Russia wants to give up. or at least it seems. But we see such a strange situation. Maybe it's not strange, of course, but nevertheless, it did not predict in this way that Trump is trying in every possible way to appease Putin, and from different sides, often in a rude manner, some unprecedented pressure is being exerted on Ukraine and President Zelensky. What do you think this can all lead to? Because it is obvious that Zelensky is fighting back, and it seems that under these conditions, capitulation will be, in your opinion, Trump administration can use it in order to push through and force Ukraine to sign something. In fact, there are such few levers because Europe has demonstrated a willingness to help Ukraine, which is to say, you're not holding all the cards. This is about a $10 billion package that was announced today. It is more than enough for Ukraine to hold out for another year, 25. So it is clear, I'm not sure what the 25 is. Oh, is 2025? That must be it. What he's referring to. It is clear that Europe has not yet used all its resources, and moreover, if the rearmament of Europe begins, and in general everything is heading towards this direction because people aren't doing the peace dividend business anymore because they see what's going on, and the new German administration will certainly be primarily engaged in restoring the power of the Wehrmacht. That is, it may be ironic that 80 years ago America was saving European democracy from fascism, which was spread by the Wehrmacht, but today we are waiting for the revival of the Wehrmacht to stop the spread of fascism in Europe, which is supported by the current American administration. Such a sarcastic smile of history. And moreover, we must not forget that, well, with all his habits, Trump still rules in America, and yes, today he seems to have more goals than Lena, but this support can disappear at any moment. I'm not sure what Lena is exactly. It disappeared at any moment. Principal public opinion polls already indicate a certain discontent of the people, and how long will this Republican majority be able to support Trump with their eyes closed if a total capitulation begins? We do not know. Many senators and congressmen have already spoken out. Republicans, yes, of course. It turns out a little strange to vote for it turns out a little strange to vote there for Tulsi Gabbard. There's just an obvious sympathizer of Putin and a friend of Assad in general for the post of the head of American intelligence, and to appoint an outspoken, that's our least favorite type of outspoken, to the post of FBI director, or absolutely, well, just a meaningless person for commentator. I'm not sure. For director of the Pentagon as well. He's insulting that a Fox News commentator is being appointed to the, be in charge of the Pentagon. Can be a battalion commander. That is, yes, it's all as if it is for a while. For a while. Porto outpost, Ukra, Kharkov, Zelensky, but I'm not sure, that must be mistranslated. Zelensky dictator, but the answers are not coming. This must be in reference to Zelensky being called a dictator by Trump earlier, but answers are not coming only from the Democrats, but also from the many Republicans. That's why it seems to me that Trump, in the end, as if always that's how it is after the shouts, their loud, their howling spells. In the end, he will still look for some option to announce that everything is fine, as Germany announced, but our conservatives won, despite the fact that they did everything so that this party would lose most likely. Some option will be found, and that will allow, here we signed this agreement, here in general we are here in the business in general. Trump can lose like any arrogant such potential dictator. He should always look very, very good, his resource to force Ukraine to surrender. He's on the condition of unity in Europe, which we are now observing it small. That's why it seems to me that seemed like a whole lot of stuff I wasn't quite making sense of. But Europe being unified seems to me why Zelensky is confident. In general, he is playing today here in this game. It is more dangerous, of course, as if he is not used to it. After all, he is used to it. After all, I think that Trump. That Trump Blash sleep in the White House is still less dangerous than Putin's tanks and Kadyrev's bandits. If I'm not mistaken, Kadyrov is the Chechen warlord that is currently a major commander in Russia, but I'm really not confident on that one. I'm just, in terms of putting a name to, not a face, but a role. Who were standing there literally a few kilometers from his residence, then 3 years, and of course, 3 more years of advertisement. Alright, let's continue. 3 years ago, about the first elections in Germany watched themselves with alarm. You know the case well. What do you think? What configuration will be in the government? Not only the only configuration is possible now, as if, well, firstly, the elections could have ended better, could have ended worse, by the way. So he's talking about the German elections. They could have been better, but they could have also been worse. In fact, it was clear that the Ultra Party, well, maybe after all, it is a bit difficult to call them Nazis, although the best way to characterize them is that Marie Le Pen refuses to interact with them in the European Parliament. That's a funny one. Kasparov with the jokes. Marie Le Pen, of course, being a very far right wing, and if Marie Le Pen won't touch him, if for Marie Le Pen they are too right wing, well, I remember their babble amongst their babble among the thugs that served as a boar. Yes, that must be a boar. Yes, must be a name. That's even among these ultra-rightists, he still has some kind of supporting reputation, nevertheless, as if, well, they have gained their own 20-something%. What is interesting, he's talking about the party in, I think the AfD party, Alternative for Germany, of course, being Deutschland. What's interesting is they got less than, they even were, well, a little less than the polls were. 21-22, and this is actually very good because such parties always have what is called the Trump effect. Ugh. Now in America, they call 23% a drain, as if they vote but do not admit it. But here it is not entirely clear, as they say, whether these 23% are in Germany, as they say. They never showed up, or they were, but there was not. There was a very high turnout. In fact, even by German standards, the highest turnout since last year. Maybe this turnout exceeded this. In general, we still need to figure out. But the results were generally approximately expected. It is very important that the ultra-wide did not pass. Ultra-wide must be what they call the party in Germany, the AfD. And we aren't getting any subtitles here. So I guess we're catching up. Hopefully we have more subtitles coming in here. Because we, of course... He's talking very fast. Alright, far from the bar of 5, and in my opinion, this Sarah has almost 497. This is, in fact, this could have shifted the situation and taken away from the necessary mandates to form a coalition of the CDU and the Social Democrats. Now we must wait, as they say, who will replace Scholz. I think all the same, Pistorius, as the Ministry of Defense, has a good chance. As the Ministry of Defense has a good chance. He takes a tough stance on Russia and the Ukrainian war. Merz made a very important statement right away that Europe must become independent from America. That is, it is necessary to build its own defense, its own, in general, its own political face. And this is, of course, very important considering the way America is acting at this juncture. This makes sense. It is very interesting that chairman of the most important pro-America party in Germany, made an anti-American statement. Good old Kasparov with the zingers. He's always a little bit. He's a little bit, or I don't want to say extra, but he's got some barbs. If you look at the parties, the CDU, CSU is the most pro-American party. This is how Trump's policy has led to, which is in terms of Canadian politics, it's also led to the right wing was crushing the left in Canadian politics, and stuff like the tariffs have made that just completely flip-flop. I also think that an agreement will be breached in this co-election. They have a fairly comfortable majority of two parties. Therefore, in my opinion, there are a total of 329 mandates. They have the 319 needed for 316 needed to control the Bundestag. Plus it is also clear that, as they say, I think many of them will have a question. Will the Greens support them there? I think that this support in principle is guaranteed. It is alarming that, of course, not only AfD performed well, but former communists performed very well. They got more than 8%, almost this ultra-wide. So ultra-wide maybe is just referring to far left, far right. This must just be a term in Russian that doesn't translate too well, I suppose. Third German voter voted for pro-Putin parties. Just frankly about Putin parties, what is even more alarming is that among the youth in the category of 18-24, there are more than half of them that in general the vectors of German politics. They force us to be very careful. And what is indicative is the audience that votes for these parties. It is much more strongly represented in social networks, which is one of the ways in which was one of the axes upon which the FSB is attacking Western democracies is through social media. All right, we're back. That is, in principle, if let's say there are 13% of CDU voters are guided by social networks, then let's say the ultra-right, ultra-left in general. So he's saying both sides of the right and left, because this is the way in which these troll farms and stuff operate, is they propagate both far-left narratives and far-right narratives with the goal of increasing partisanship and tribalism. In general, there are dangerous trends, but it seems, I think, this coalition, so to speak, has sufficient stability. Okay, so he's not going to give us the figures for the right and the left, and if only the Social Democrats do not prevail, the ROV's people, they will begin torpedoing. And I think Germany will lead the process of the renaissance of Europe as a political player. Regardless, yes, by the way, we have discussed many times that being under such tutelage or something of the United States of America, Europe has lost its subjectivity. That is, I assume, philosophically speaking, its ability to act as a subject, as an agent in its own right, instead just kind of following the lead of America. What was expressed in the recent controversy actually when they said, and actually, why should Europe be here? Who are they? We will sit now and figure it out. Yes, well, that's not true, in fact. Okay, yes. Well, that's not true, in fact, what U.S. Vice President Jedi Vance, the force is strong with this one, said in Munich was like a reaction to many years of, Europe's passivity, America's patronage. Europe accepted that, America will protect us and we will not spend money on frost. This is, of course, getting disproportionate value out of the peace dividend if you don't pay as much into NATO. This, being, I assume the objection he's referring to by Jedi Vance. We have social obligations here that Europe was relaxed, and it turned out that most of Europe is not ready for this aggression. It is clear that the Baltics or the Poles, they generally expected this and talked about it and shouted it in general. Now I have found out, Kasparov shouted about it too. Now I found out that they were right. The genetic experience, genetic memory, that this has not gone away. Man, poor Poland has just gotten absolutely destroyed over the past like 4 centuries and just like brutalized. I really hope Poland doesn't get invaded too. But today, this has ceased to be a problem for Eastern Europe. I repeat that this is very important to see that even such distant countries such as Portugal and Spain have also actively taken up support for Ukraine. That is, they understand that here is the European project, here is the European home. It depends in many ways on whether Ukraine will survive or not. And in this case, Trump, they consider it as a threat. I assume they're talking about Trump as a threat, most likely, and when they rightly consider it because Trump would like to see, as they say, a different Europe, that they would allow a big America to dictate terms there. Yes, let's not forget, Canada also has actively joined the process. Here, too, it is important that potential conservatives will come to replace them. They occupy everything about They occupy everything about the Ukrainian position. I think he's referring to Canada here, having a similar position with regards to being potentially aggressed on, or maybe they're saying that Canada cares about the Ukrainian position, or in Europe does as well. Or he's just saying that Canada is an analog of Ukraine if US were to invade. I don't think he's saying that, though. And a large age packet is very interesting. I had time to sort it out. Do announced the confiscation of part of Russian money. I think that's the EU confiscating the Russian money or using the frozen Russian assets as collateral with which to get loans with which to aid Ukraine. Now we need to understand in principle what this is. Well, maybe it's only interest on them again, but in principle, for the first time, the phrase was heard about using part of the frozen Russian assets. That is, most likely everything is moving in this direction. And let's not forget that the main part of Putin's money frozen in the West is in Europe. That is an important point. That is an important detail that I was unaware of. Well, little in Canada. Yes, everyone is right. There are about 300 billion there. Accordingly, it is hard to say. This is the amount. This is the amount, as it were. Well, I would estimate it between 250 and 300 billion, because in addition to the 190 billion that are in Belgium, as it were, which is located in this one organization, everything else is... Everything else is an advertisement, of course. One of the points that he makes in his book is that access to the foreign financial institutions in other countries are really one of the means by which the billionaires and the oligarchs in Russia can actually utilize all the money and wealth that they have created. And so cutting off access to these institutions is or was essential, back in 2016. And so it's an interesting point to see that the frozen assets freezing the assets is a very important cutting off of access to these Western financial institutions. All right. Scattered sanctions are like one of those gingerbreads that Putin gets tired of. Well, in addition to the American sanctions, there are European ones. They are even European sanctions seriously, because, in fact, Europe has more economic leverage with Europe. And in principle, here... again, NATO, I think, lifts sanctions is only Trump has his own economic interests. If the U.S. lifts sanctions, it's only Trump caring. If Europe continues as if sanctions, well, what will they say now? Russia instead of American? Somehow, yes. As if Trump, anyway, everything will be calculated in dollars, and calculation in dollars will indicate that the conflict is with the euro, despite the fact that with Canada, with China, because I'm not sure where this analysis is going. All American power, America today, is not American in 2005. This is not half of the world economy. And in principle, 2005, I think, is talking about it. And in principle, the American economy is quite vulnerable. And the beginning of the trade war, it is good start on paper. Aubry answer back. And answers can be very painful. talking about the reciprocal tariffs and causing America to feel the squeeze. The sanctions have a cost, of course, to impose, but he's saying that the Americans alone, in terms of who they decide to sanction or not sanction in regards to Russia, is less important than it was earlier back in 2005, I think is what he's saying. Already voiced that the strikes will be carried out as if pinpointed on Tesla. They will naturally hit as if they will actually make it a non-entry into Canada. I think this is the plus 100% tariff on Teslas. And many sanctions that Europeans will accept in response here are not sanctioned tariff counterattacks. They will be directed against the red states that voted for Trump. That is, in this war, Trump will not be easy, I think. Seriously, people around, it will not be easy for Trump, I think, is kind of what he's saying. On the United Europe, even there with a Trojan horse Orno and Trojan horse Orno. I'm not sure who Orno is, who that's referring to as a Trojan horse. And I sing along, Fitz is a force that can cause a lot of trouble if you go head on. I know that you have a little time, so SBO, you pain. Additionally, here, of course, you know that also last week when news came of endless news, as if from a madhouse related to the statements of Trump and his supporters, I prod that many in social networks, this is of course before the meeting between him and Zelensky, that this took place. Some kind of such feeling arose. Well, hopelessness, as if all this was perceived very hard. I think this is in reference to Trump calling Zelensky a dictator, these types of statements. But now, somehow, the position does not look hopeless, and even with certain, well, let's do it this way, we need to put in their place Ukrainians who have been living under bombing. Put in their place, I assume, restore to their homes and their proper, dignity and this type of thing. Put in their place in terms of, colloquial translation doesn't mean what I think he's trying to say. For 3 years now, they have been receiving funeral notices in reality. Yeah. Ukraine is fighting, therefore how can we give up? What is in this principle? We still have opportunities to do something, as if there's still quite a lot. Here is this Ukrainian example, this heroism and this fortitude. They should show us all to inspire us. In general, everything is far from lost, and even Europe, that relaxed, old, flabby, decrepit Europe, has also gathered now. So we'll have another advertisement regarding the gathering of Europe. So we'll see. In general, what will this impulse lead to? Because if Europe gathers itself, then let's not forget that it's like a combined force. It's bigger than America. Yes, it's clear that it's not the army that's new. If the German industry starts working, then in general, I think a lot of interesting things, especially since, by the way, look at the market. The shares of American military companies have gone down, and the shares of the main German weapons company have gone up sharply. This is, in fact, Trump also has failed here, so we'll watch. I think that the events of the last few days have shown that the situation is far from hopeless. I mean, Kasparov's quite a bit more optimistic than I have been the last few days, and I'm happy to see someone being optimistic, but this is back on the 24th, I suppose. Moreover, it leaves a lot of room for the WKI to be victorious and not neutral. Thank you very much for your time. All the best. Goodbye. Oh, jeez. that was a swift outro. I guess let's hear what this guy has to say a little bit. With your permission, I'll stay on the air for a little longer. Unfortunately, we have a short broadcast with Garry Kasparov today, and I'll stay because I want to talk about the statement which was made by the Free Russia Forum, dedicated to the third anniversary of the full-scale invasion of the Russian structure, because I assume that's invasion of Ukraine, because questions about the Free Russia Forum are often received. We have a political body, the council, which is generally engaged in. Here are political activities, discusses political strategy, and makes statements on behalf of the organization, and such a statement was made. You can read it on the forum, resources on Facebook, in Telegram. Many council members also post a statement. Some relevant political information is there, and I have it on Gary's personal resources. And I also want to remind you that his Telegram channel is a real Telegram channel that belongs to him. You can find a link to it under this broadcast. And why am I still talking? Because there are fake Telegram channels under Kasparov's name. It is very difficult to fight them in Telegram, and in particular, one of the fake Telegram channels not only functions, but is engaged in promotion and advertisement, and there are even such absurd cases when, for example, Alexander Nevzorov gave a link to a channel in no way connected with Garry Kasparov. It is not connected under his name, so you can find information about the forum and our statement about our resources, as I said, and on Telegram channels in the description under this broadcast. My broadcast today is not the last one. In exactly an hour of wonderful historian and publicist Yuri Filhinsky will come to us and discuss the current issues, and once again talk with him about the Trump case and about the possibility of Trump about his possible connection with the KGB. We discussed the last time, but now relevant information has arrived, and we will discuss it again. So I will not say goodbye, but see you on our broadcast in an hour. And so then it's looping back around. So that was a bit of an interesting one. Maybe I should have just reacted to what I was reading or trying to read instead of just trying to read it. I haven't tried to do something like that before. It's a little bit difficult when trying to read something to also process it at the same time. I think Kasparov didn't necessarily go into too great a depth on Putin and Ukraine as much as commentating a little bit more on just his general feel for what's going on, as well as some commentary on current political things as of February 24th when this was recorded. And so that was a bit interesting. I am shocked to see him sounding optimistic. And so maybe I need to try and seek out more information that's like on non-English speaking spheres and this type of thing. I think that Garry Kasparov is likely to have his finger on the pulse of things related to Russia much, much greater than I do. After all, he ran for president in Russia, but, ran for president, type of run for president in Russia, in that it was just being part of the opposition party and fighting for democracy in Russia, and, running in what he knew was a sham election. But that was a bit interesting to read through, to listen through. Was looking for something on Kasparov or by him that was a bit more contemporary. Couldn't find anything in English. I hope that you guys found this interesting despite the translation being a little bit rough and there being advertisements, this type of thing. I think we will link this in the description, this video in the description if we can, in case you wanted to just watch it yourself and read through it yourself, this type of thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, YouTube algorithm, etc., mostly etc. And other than that, I would say have a good day. But we are, a reminder, raising money for the Ukrainian Defense Fund. If you are interested in contributing, this is to give aid in terms of military equipment to those fighting in Ukraine. It is being raised through our Twitch. You can find the link down below if you're interested. And other than that, have a good one.